Back with some more vibes. Keep it locked.
The public is hereby informed of the regulations for the Sufre jetties. The jetties are managed by the Sufre Foundation. Operational hours are between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. daily. During these hours, no unauthorized personnel will be allowed on the jetties. No vending, no loitering, and no visitor harassment will be tolerated. The main and boardwalk jetties are to be used for the disembarkment of visitors to Sufre and therefore should be a safe zone for all. Anyone found violating these regulations will be prosecuted.
Casualty 911, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with the consultant. Health is not merely the absence of diseases. It is your social, economic, physical, spiritual, and mental well-being. Just imagine you on 88.5 Sufre FM, talking, questioning, sharing your experience, information, education, entertainment, news, instructions, advice on diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes, menopause, AIDS, pregnancy, sex.
Sex? Did you say sex?
As prescribed, take your medication, exercise, and diet. On 88.5 Sufre FM, tell a friend, call your neighbor. Casualty 911 is on.
And of course, we're back. We're back. Casualty 911 is on. Yeah, we have added. Well, I guess. He's here this morning. A long time, boy. There, see you. Boy, long time to hear from you.
Good morning, Radio Land. I hope you remember that voice, a sexy voice. Okay, this is Casualty.
This is Casualty 911. Thank you very much. Although it could be part of Casualty 911, it's all part of health. It's all part of the holistic approach of life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's nice to have a good laugh this morning.
Of course.
Let me just say good morning to all our listeners out there. Our bus drivers, market vendors, M&C drugstore, our wellness centers, parents at home, children who are not at school today. Let me say happy and wonderful good morning to you. This morning, I would like to say a special birthday greeting to Miss Fidelia Prosper. She's a community health aide at Sufre Hospital. I just wanted to enjoy that day and God bless.
That's a dark skin lady, right?
No,
wearing
short,
orange.
Short.
Oh, okay. Maybe I had the wrong person.
One from Diamond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
70s Adventist.
Yes, you have it right. So, we know. Come June 1st, it is the starting of the hurricane season. We want to give people a gentle reminder that start putting things in place. Do not wait last minute. Pour en lot de joie, nous kay hurricane saison kay commencer, so nous ve moun commencer ka fè bagay pour mettre en place pour saison cyclone. So Erlan, I know this week, last week we were not able to do the radio program, but I just want to mention that hopefully in the following weeks we will continue our sessions on mental health. But today I want to speak a little bit about general sanitation. Last week, the 23rd to the 28th of May was Vector Awareness Week. And we know that there is quite a bit of buzz around as it relates to vector-borne diseases. But before I go on, I just want to speak about general sanitation because prevention is key. And a lot of people do not understand these things. It doesn't matter the size of your house, the size of your yard, but as long as you keep it clean, and that is the main thing. People associate small houses and so on, and they feel, okay, that person is living in that particular community. It's not a clean community. And working in environmental health a few years back, I was taken aback by when I walked in a particular community, And you know, sometimes people stigmatize community as a child. When you're a child, you hear some things about certain communities. But as an adult growing up, when you go to these communities, you see so much of a difference. And I must compliment these communities, especially the council workers in the villages. Some of them do a very, very, very good job. They keep these places clean and tidy, as well as the residents themselves. So, what do you think sanitation is, and what do you think the whole approach about sanitation is? Just not about sweeping the yard in the morning, or washing your dishes, or making sure that you wash on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, but it's the things that we do to maintain in and around the home. So for example, yes, you might sweep the yard every morning, but yet still you have a lot of, let's say, bulky waste on one side of the yard. So in going around your yard, you have to ensure that you remove any clutter, anything that is unnecessary. If it's not in use, get rid of it. For example, you might have an old fridge that you're not using, you're not planting anything in. You need to put it out on the bulky waste days. You have an old stove, put it out. These white goods, old washing machines, put it out on bulky waste days. These are things you have to do. Do not store them underneath the garage, in the garage or underneath the house and these kind of stuff. Throw these things away. That is why solid waste is there, and we have to be mindful of all these things. The other thing is, a lot of people have holding containers all around the house. Sometimes we get water every single day, but nowadays I know we don't get water as often as before. So if you have drums, barrels, or water holding containers, you need to keep it covered. And a lot of people are not mindful of these. Reason being, you know, mosquito breeds. We have mosquito-borne diseases in our country, and you need to be mindful of these things. So when you have these hot water holding containers, you need to keep it covered to prevent the breeding of mosquitoes in these containers. For example, you're using one drum at a time. I mean, for the day you leave one exposed, whilst you keep the others covered. You make life easier for you. For persons with pit latrines, I know a lot of people say, hey, people still have pit latrines.
I wouldn't imagine.
Of course, a lot of people have pit latrines still.
Oh, wow.
Wow. What community are you from?
Well, I grew up in Chateaubel, and it is something that I'm very familiar with.
Yes.
But yeah, I think they still do. When
Of
I go, just thinking about it, like, yeah, people still do. They still have it.
A lot of people still have pit latrines. They don't want to get rid of the pit latrines, and so you'll be surprised when you walk in certain communities. You might not get as many as before, but you might get at least one or two in the community. So you have to be mindful of that. Your pit latrines have to be kept clean.
You have that again?
That's what we were discussing, but yeah, they do. You know,
They do have pit latrines in the community.
People station in bucket?
The VIP.
Not in buckets, you know, those
Yeah,
little
people
shacks.
still do buckets, you know, Erlan.
Yeah, they still do.
And
Like
that's another thing when it comes to
countryside, yeah.
sanitation. Human waste.
Because
Well, even with the modern day, you know, septic tanks and all those things, it still comes back to the same thing, because sometimes, you know, you have people that let their septic tanks overflow and all those things, and that is equivalent to having, like, you know, a pit latrine
Let's
that
suck
is.
away its damage.
I was about to come to that. I don't think you would do that on a deliberate thing.
Well, it wouldn't be deliberate, but sometimes it happens and you don't take care of it. So
And that's bad.
that is where.
Yeah, that's bad.
That is where I guess
Because the stench, you can actually take the stench and you still
that
not.
is, that is even worse.
Very much so, because you actually see in the raw feces.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the sockaway, it all depends how it is being built. It all depends on the soil type. It all depends on the filtration
Yes, the filtration system.
through the soil. And another thing is how well you maintain your system, because the system itself is both the septic tank by law, is both the septic tank and the sockaway. So that's a complete system. And another thing persons have to be mindful of is when you use all these bleach, disinfectant, toilet bowl cleaner,
That kills the natural bacteria that's
it kills
supposed
the
to be
natural
breaking
bacteria, so it does not break down
down. Yes.
the solid particles fast enough. So it therefore damages your sockaway. Correct is right.
And in case if you have some old cheese, you're gonna always flush your old cheese down in the.
Yogurt and so on.
Yes.
You can always do these things. But a lot of people have their sockaway and their septic tank, but the septic tank is damaged. It has cracks and openings which breeds mosquitoes also. So a lot of people feel they have, boy, where mosquitoes coming from? But all the time it's in their septic tank. So these are things you have to be mindful of, and that's all part of sanitation. All right? So, Olan, when you build your house, don't forget.
Well, in the town areas, like it's so difficult to build septic tanks, like if you don't have a proper design, because where's the space? The houses are so close. So
That is true.
So then you'd
But-
be restricted to the size that is supposed to be, and that is where you get a problem where it overflows equally easily, and then
I agree.
Poor planning is one of the things that happens, but a lot of people, they have the space for the septic tank and the sockaway if they design the houses properly. And the other thing is, a lot of people want the size of the house based on the size of the lot. So in the town, like Sufret town, one lot will be 3,200 and something square foot, or 2,000, because these lots are old
Yeah.
lots. But yet still somebody wants to build the complete house, that
So
entire
you go-
square
you-
footage.
You'll be,
They don't want to
you'll be taking a
leave a
sidewalk.
space
Yeah.
for the.
Yeah, you'll be taking a sidewalk. You barely have a yard, and all those kind of things.
So they want, if they could have built it on the road, they would have built it
Yeah.
on the road. So, and it's for designing too. And when somebody build a house plan for you, you have to bear that in mind. If you cannot go to that extent, you have to build up based on, you have to look at other factors based on your age and everything else. If you can. So these are things you have to be mindful of. And don't forget, in Sufret town, the water table is very high in some communities.
True.
So you have to bear all of that
True.
in mind also.
True.
So that is why
It's like
at certain
forbid-
times when they have heavy rains and flooding, what you get a lot of that fecal matter in the flood waters, and that's one thing you have to be mindful of. Do not put your feet in these flood waters.
yeah, because you know where that's passing through.
Exactly. And there have other communities where waste disposal is really, really bad. So another thing you have to be mindful of. So these are all the things you have to take into consideration.
But most of them around flooding time, that is when people like to dispose of them things because they say,
Oh,
"Oh,
big rain. So let me.
Big rain will wash it
That's
away.
That's what they say.
That's what they say, but then I think it's time that we as a community and the younger generation try to get out of that culture, try to improve the situation, because now that you are more educated, you have a better understanding of waste disposal, fecal coliform, and and all this kind of stuff. So therefore it's so much more easier for you to start practicing, and then other persons in the house might just follow, or they just might discourage you, but that doesn't mean you should stop the practice. You understand? But it happens, the bache still happens in a lot of the communities. That is given, especially in our villages, our towns and villages. But what can we do?
I want another thing. While we're on that topic, some people will come to you. Some people will tell you in terms of garbage collection. Some people have said to me that the timing is wrong. To them, the timing is wrong. sometimes you have the waste truck passing, and you have our visitors, persons coming to our shores, windows are open, and you have that vehicle with a stench,
yeah.
around the place, and you have some water dripping, leaking, and
Out
as
of
you
that.
go, that stench is just nasty.
So-
Stench already is a bad name already. It smells.
So one of the things we have to be mindful of is sometimes we as householders, we tend to put our garbage out late too. And then afterwards, or we put it the night before, so the dogs make a mess out of it. When you talk about the water
Right,
in
from
the
the truck.
garbage truck,
From the
it's
truck.
not that the water came from the garbage truck. It's persons that have their garbage bins outside
And what they put
and they
inside
don't
of it.
bore holes in it, so the water stays. And imagine that the garbage truck is passing every Mondays and Thursdays. I'm just putting
yes,
reference
yes,
for
yeah,
choosing.
yeah.
You have a drum outside, it's collecting water. We have had rain during this thing, and you have garbage there for a few days. When the guys take the garbage bin and they pour it in the truck, wouldn't be that water coming from your garbage bin? Because the garbage truck doesn't collect water. It's the household waste that has the water in it. And that's what persons need to understand.
But again, it's like a domino effect. It affects persons indirectly and even directly as well.
So that is why the last time we spoke, I think last year we spoke about that with Mr. Polio on this radio program. We spoke about how you should, dispose of your waste. A lot of times persons tend to say, like you said, oh, that water coming out from the truck. But sometimes we as residents are the ones to be blamed because of our poor practices. And that's what it is. So we have our garbage bins collecting water, and we're putting endless different kind of garbage in there. Of course it will have an odor. Of course it will be unbearable.
Another thing, talk to us in one person actually disposing, again, poor garbage disposal habits in regards of persons putting chicken stuff in the bin and all those kind
And
of stuff.
that too. Somebody clean their chicken on a Sunday. They don't put it in the freezer and wait for the collection day. They might just dump that or dump it in the
but
drain.
I think a lot of people are misinformed of how to throw away these things, because what I do at home, like you said, I put it in the freezer.
That's what I do.
And on the day,
Yeah.
put it in the garbage. But most persons don't know about that. They just put whatever in there.
I beg to differ. Some people just have that kind of attitude. When they drop it in the drain, the dogs will come
The
out
dog.
and eat it, or the cats will go and eat it. Or like you said, some people honestly do not know.
Yeah, I think so.
And the other thing is, some persons have to be mindful of nowadays with modern technology. There are so many things that you can do. There is that netting you can put in the sinkholes that you don't anything don't filter for except for the water. There are so many things you can, because in dropping these bits and of food in the sink, when it goes out to the drain, it attracts a lot of rats.
I was about to thank you for that.
Yeah.
Rodents,
And
yeah, you
then-
have rodents.
Rats and mice, and then we have lepto in St. Lucia, so that is another issue you can have, and so on. So like you said, for persons that have they clean their meats and their fish, you can always freeze it out, and on the day of collection you put it out in the morning. But Erlen, you must agree with me, sometimes the garbage truck passes late because they might have an issue. The truck break down,
Yeah.
or they were assisting another community that might have had a problem. But in doing that, you can always call. If you find the garbage truck miss out a day, like Mr. Polion said, you can always call, and Mr. Davis Polion is the officer, regional officer responsible for solid waste in Soufrière. You can always call him and then let him know. You understand? In the event that the garbage truck does not pass a particular day. Now, the other thing is that we have to inform residents of the different types of waste. I'm seeing you having something out there.
No, I was like,
bulky waste.
no, yeah. That's
on
probably
your
the-
on stuff, because and since you say 3 items per household are allowed, and that is something that persons need to understand. Do not let this bulky waste pile up at home, and then you have endless bulky waste to put out on the deal. But you're not the only one. Imagine the one truck have to service the entire Suffolk community. And you alone already put 10 things out. You alone full of the truck already. So therefore you have to be mindful of all of these things. It's a gradual, if you're cleaning up around your home, it's a gradual process. And another thing person need to understand, dry leaves, green waste, you can compost it. You don't have to put that out. You can compost it, you can use it for manure, for your flowers, your kitchen garden, and all these kind of things. We have to find innovative ways to deal with what we have. And I think COVID taught us a lot of that. But people tend to forget now because things are getting back to, normal. So a lot of people go back to that same old behavior. And that's what we want to change. We want persons to be mindful of what they should do, to keep around their homes clean.
All right, I like you bring that up. Now, here's another thing again. You have person they resort to burning. Now, there's person with health issues, who's asthmatic, who's have. When should one burn stuff in the yard, like in terms of whatever they choose to burn, whether it's old clothes, leaves, like you made mention, or whatever you think that's necessary to be burnt?
You're not supposed to burn, period.
All right,
Wow.
nice.
Okay.
And if you're burning something, you have to inform fire service.
Okay, nice. Because persons on the outside might be ignorant about that. Like that is my yard that I can do what I want. But that is wrong because
If you
sometimes
burn,
you
you burn.
you have your clothes on
You
the
have
line.
your clothes on the
Boy,
line, and
somebody-
then yeah.
Especially if you just had a baby and you open the baby
Oh,
clothes on
boy,
the line.
yeah.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. That can get you really, really upset. And you as a mother, you cannot even say anything that you just had a child. You have to be mindful of all these things. But what I'm saying to you is there is no reason for you to burn dry leaves. Is there a reason for you to burn dry leaves? I just spoke about composting.
Yeah, you spoke about it,
Yeah,
but other
so-
persons, if they again ignorant, like just put flames. in
Why
that.
would you
Yeah.
want to burn old clothes? These are things we have to be mindful of. Either if you don't want to give it to charity, you can put it out on garbage
Garbage,
collection
yeah, you can
days
just throw it away, yeah.
and so on. And let me tell you something, and persons need to be innovative too. What you might feel is old clothes. In looking at YouTube, you can see so many things that you can do with the same material that you're deciding to throw away. You can do pillowcases. You can do so many things. So persons now have to find new ways. Instead of discarding these things, that takes a toll on the environment because the time it gets to rot and all these things, you have to be mindful
ways
of what
to
you can,
reuse it,
you can
reinvent.
reuse it. That's what recycling is all
Yeah.
about.
Cycle.
So, it's just not about throwing things, but you can also do recycling. And that's one of the best things ever, recycling. And it teaches your children and your grandchildren and other neighbors, how to do things.
Guys, we're talking about this morning. We're talking about cleanliness, right?
Very much
Right,
so.
cleanliness. And one of our biggest issues, I'll tell you, even right now, although during COVID, we've been told that we should do the essentials, where is washing of the hands, persons still tend to just eat anyhow, eat from anything. Now, I come into you, I have some points I bring it up there, and I hope you're ready for that. You understand?
Yeah.
Persons,
I probably
I'm
know
always
where
up
this
to
is
the
going.
challenge.
Yeah.
I'm
Let's see
always
where
up for
this
the
is going
challenge.
to.
another thing, we're talking about cleanliness. Let's go. Vendors. We have some vendors. I bashing nobody, but we have some vendors.
When you say vendors, which
Okay,
vendors you talking
those
about?
selling food, street vendors, street
vendors,
vendors.
Street
Okay.
itinerant vendors.
Okay, good. Very nice. Sometimes you ask for chicken, the same money, the same hand they take
Oh,
the
boy,
money
yeah.
with, like the same hand they choose to take the chicken or the beak with, all them kind of things. Not wearing a hairnet and all them kind of things. So I want you to address them kind of things. Do you understand? and who's actually
Those-
looking or supervising those persons?
Well, I hope environmental health is listening. As a former environmental health officer, I must admit that we have had not we, but environmental health have had quite a bit of training to these persons. And the practices I find are slowly changing, but maybe not at a fast pace, to reduce infection and so on. But The other thing, Erlan, you have to be mindful of, some of these persons are our very own community members, and the job of environmental health is to work with the community members. And everybody have their own personality, own, they have their own level of thinking. And sometimes behavioral change don't come out overnight.
Yeah, true.
So one of the things you might find, you might see one person taking a bucket and putting a pipe fitting in for hand washing. But the person next to them will never do it. You understand? And to bring about that change, it's very, very difficult, especially if you've had vendors that have been there for over 20 years, and that's what they have been doing for such a long time. And you might say, but you are the regulatory body, you should stop these people and close these people down. But it does not work like that, because after you've inspected, you have done what you have done, it goes to the public health board, and then the public health board will decide what action they want to take. Again, don't forget they are your community members, and the onus is on the customer also. So if
it's up to you if you want to buy or not.
because you've seen the practice, you see what can happen to you. So you as the customer, have to say, me, I'm not eating there, because I can tell you, as an environmental health officer, former environmental health officer, I keep on forgetting, now I am a health educator by profession.
Okay.
As a former environmental health officer, there are places I just wouldn't eat. And and there are places you might not eat and I would eat.
True.
It's based on me as an individual. I might know the practices are not good, but I might choose as an environmental health or former environmental health officer, knowing better, might still choose to eat there. And you might decide, no way I'm eating there. You understand? It boils down to the customer at the end of the day. So if you already seen that practice, let's say you've seen that practice, he's seen that practice, and none of y'all is going to purchase, that obviously after a while that person will be out of business. But if you continue purchasing from that person, you will still, the person will
I
still
do nothing
thrive.
wrong. I do nothing wrong.
Exactly. Because you can continue moun ti ka gen la même person pa ka complain.
Right.
And that's one of the responses we've had in the past. But say même si yo pa ka complain, mais c'est pas manière. What if they get sick? So big sa ou ka fè, ça fait ces moun nan malade. But they don't see it like that.
Your place of operating, they're supposed to be clean. Your buckets have to be, What's
So
this?
that's all part of it. And Erlan, we are a community where we tend to support our own.
We do, eh? We do.
And even if we tend to criticize, but there are times we as customers need to have first to help out the situation with the regulatory bodies, for example, environmental health. So if you see me doing it, you can say, hey, Louisa, what are you doing? Why are you collecting money and selling bake with that same thing? Even washing your hands and so on. And these are things you can do. Or you can say, well, when things are slow, you can maneuver on your own. But when things start heating up, peak time, you need somebody to assist you.
Yeah, but
and so
let's
on.
take a situation like that. He wants to open a restaurant, and I want to be a street vendor. You had a nice name for it. What's the process for getting that? What's it, a health card or health?
Well, you'll have to go
the
to
inspection.
environmental health.
So he wants to open a restaurant, right? But I just want to be a street vendor. Would I have to go through that same process?
You have to.
So
You have
there's
to go to environmental
all
health.
the street vendors that I see on the street.
The requirements for a street vendor vis-a-vis a restaurant would be different. And
do
don't
they
tell
at
me.
least go through?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes they put them to sit down and they explain everything to them.
Okay.
For example,
Louisa, you going to ask you if you're sure.
No, I see so many. There's a lot of street vendors. So,
But they have those that pop up overnight.
yeah, that's what I'm
They
saying.
have
Like
those
they have
that
those
operate
that
only at night time.
So they
And then you know,
nighttime is for drunk people. So they say
but let me tell you, I mean, you work 8 to 4, Mondays to Fridays. You don't work Saturdays. Some people operate only on a Saturday. You understand?
But
But
is
it
there
affects-
is there someone respond? I know there's the place you tell me environment, but is there that one person that's in charge making sure that person is certified health wise to be operated?
that goes around and say,
that would be
okay,
environmental health.
Is there that person?
There is
that
not
particular-
one person.
Okay.
It's the department or
Okay,
the
cool.
division that's responsible. Like I said,
But who's making sure?
they are making sure. It's just that the persons try to beat around the system all the time, and it's a fact. You cannot monitor everybody, but you as an individual, you know you're going to sell food to people. That's what people put in their body. You should have a conscience
Sure.
at least
Sure.
and do things right.
Sure.
Because you're an adult, nobody has to police you.
Sure.
Because environmental health is just a walk away.
yeah. But what we find is a lot of people, you know, when they start well doing all the practices, but after a while they just drop everything, and
Yeah,
that's
but-
what usually happens.
But they cannot continue to monitor you all the time. Who wants somebody to be
Okay.
on their back every day?
Let me ask you, how often? Oh, okay. You know what? The period for health card, 2 months, 3 months,
Every 6 months.
every 6 months. So
By law.
if you've been at me what for 20, okay, say 15 years, you're a street vendor, you've been hustling. By the time you're 6 months, I supposed to be checking on you too as a whatever officer saying, yo, you come and pay, you come and check yourself. Your stool, you bring your stool for the doctor, and then you bring nothing. You understand?
Yeah, your health card is
You check
is
it?
expiring. It's probably expired
You
by
understand?
now, so
They
you
do
need to
that
get
when
it
they do their
updated.
inspections. Sometimes, let me tell you something, Erland. Some people have a high turnover at their workplace. Today, you might be at that restaurant. Tomorrow, I'm seeing you at that restaurant. Some persons, they are the only person at the place of sale, like the itinerant vendor, the street vendor. how you
What's
call
it?
them?
Itinerary?
Itinerant vendor.
Itinerant?
I can
Yes.
run.
So you there, and you're the only one there. Mondays to, let's say Monday to Saturday, you there. Sunday the places are closed. Sometimes you don't make time to come and look for your health card. And instead of you asking somebody to go and pay that for me, and whilst so you can maneuver, you find it's too much of a burden. And these are things we environmental health come across every day. I'm not making excuses for these persons, but there are persons that are just naturally non-compliant. No matter what you try with them, they just are just difficult people.
Yeah, but we look at some other departments that are not so critical, like planning, price control. Like those people, you find that if you're building a house, the wrong place, planning would be on your back.
Like
Like
now
they would ensure that
Yeah.
that house is stopped.
Like now.
We look at price control. A lot of shopkeepers, they want to ensure that their price is within what's supposed to be, because they don't know when price control is gonna get to them. So that should be the same case when it comes to food, because that is even with more critical.
That is true. But based on human resource, you cannot monitor everybody, because Soufre alone is doing Soufre and Conneries and Choiseul. And based on the limited number of human resource you have, you cannot cover everybody for the entire year. So if I cover you once for the year, I already give you an inspection. I already tell you what it is.
Wow.
I explain all your findings, give you your recommendations, what you should do, what you should put in place. Sometimes, based on the severity of the situation, they will give you another inspection. So the pass mark is 80%. I should have somebody at environmental health.
I know, right?
That's sidetracking my
Yeah.
show. It's supposed to be sanitation.
It is part of sanitation.
But let
because-
me just tell you, the benchmark, suppose the pass mark is 80% during an inspection. But if you score 30%, they will work with you to bring you up.
30% is a long way from 80%.
Very much so. But like I said, we are a community, and our job is not to close people down, but to work with them.
All right.
All right, so
Because
let
certain
me
things
ask
is
that
just
question. Yeah.
practices.
So have you, you know,
Infrastructure.
in Sufra and countries that you're responsible for, have you ever had, you know, during your time as an environmental health officer, have had to close down any business in Sufra?
Well, we've had situation where
You close
we
them.
no.
Not she- well, it has to go through the, you know,
The public health board.
board.
We have sent
So-
information to the public health board, and that in itself takes quite a long time. And during that time, persons do put things in place. So by the time we get to the public health board and thing, they
They've
try to
already-
rectify it. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Alright.
imagine you're a small street vendor. Do you think you would want to send a small street vendor that has a family of
Yeah.
4 that is struggling, hustling, to the public health board?
But
Well,
That
well,
person might very well be your sister, your brother.
well, no,
or
but
your
when
neighbor.
we, you know, we would prefer not to get to that point. But if you're looking at, you know, you have a street vendor that is selling food that is possibly contaminated. You know, you have, you know, parties and events happening, and then you go hundreds of people can get sick. That is
There you go
that
again.
takes a toll on our health system. So it comes back to, okay, are we gonna rectify it with one person, or are we gonna let hundreds of people get sick before?
what is my
Before
brother?
we
What
can-
is my sister?
And let me tell you what you fail to understand. Whereas we're looking at one agency, but for a lot of the different things, it has to be a joint collaboration between all agencies. Because let me just give you a typical example. You decide to open a restaurant. Before you open the restaurant, you have to get public health approval.
True.
Before you can get public health approval, you have to get approval maybe from planning if you're building your thing from scratch. You have to meet planning requirements and so on. Sometimes it's a collaboration effort between more than one government agency, and it's just not one government agency. And that is what it is. So you say you're going to open a restaurant, your restaurant is going to be rented out, but they still want the floor plan of that building before they can do anything with you. Some people go through the process, some people open their restaurants overnight, and these things happen. But all in all, the job there is to help people to reach the 80% benchmark.
Okay, all right.
Miss Wilson, we spoke about restaurants, we spoke about street vendors. Let's talk about salons. Let's talk about barber shops.
Erlen, my job is my topic is
You
sanitation. I'm not working with
said
environmental
cleanliness. You said
health.
sanitization, cleanliness. That's what you talk about. You know, barbers, salons as well supposed to be clean. I mean, the tools you're using supposed to be sanitized because I can get the ring. I can get any things on my domain.
Yes,
you know?
can get it. You can get it. A lot of the barber shops and the salons, they use barbicide. They do clean up.
Some.
Some of them. They do clean on a daily basis. They do disinfect their surfaces and so on. But when you're dealing with hair, it's a ticklish thing. That means hair is everywhere. So some of them do deep cleaning. Based on the volume of people that come in and out, at the time of inspection, you have to be mindful, because if that's the time where you see a lot of people, you don't expect to get just a little bit of hair on the floor and so on. So there is a lot of dynamics to it.
But how often do, your former department or persons from your
Well, I
But
wouldn't know
let's
how
put it
often they-
a better way. Okay, so you know the former department that, you know, what was it again? Environmental health. All right. You know, the human capacity was not there, human resource was not there to enforce everything. But now that you're in that department of public health, I think now,
I think
now would be more important now to, you know, to educate. All right, so you tell the barbers, okay, this is what needs to be done. If they're not using barbicide or whatever the name is, you tell them, okay, you should be using that, you should be cleaning. You know, that is your job now. The salons, you should be, you know, researching, doing your research, and going to them and telling them, okay, this is what you need to be doing if you're gonna be playing with, you know, with people's health.
because, you know,
But,
So that is why public health comes in now.
One of the things you find is that we do a lot of training in that light. Environmental health do training in that light, so you don't want to overlap what environmental health is doing. You understand? If needs be, whilst environmental health is doing that kind of training, or if you see there is a need for me to handle that target group, like barbershops and beauty salons, based on something that you've been seeing, the trend, for sure, I can make it my duty to go in there and speak to them about disinfecting, cleaning schedules and these kind of things. But these are things environmental health asks them to do, to have a cleaning schedule and to maintain the cleaning schedule. It's one thing you have a cleaning schedule, but it's another thing that you don't maintain the cleaning schedule. So all of that you have to bear in mind. So environmental health is already doing, so you cannot overlap what they're actually doing.
Let's get back. Let's
Yeah,
go back.
let's
Let's
go
go
back
back
to
to home.
our
Let's
I
go
do
back
not
to
know
home.
why you were so. I
go
think
back to
you're
our
mistaking
topic.
me. I think you're still mistaking me for environmental health officer.
Because you was there.
All right, let her take charge of the last 15 minutes of your program.
I was going back home. You know, in terms of the person using, of course, chopping boards, the different, you know, contamination and all
And that would be environmental health when it comes to food safety.
Okay, well, go.
All right,
Yeah,
another
yeah.
thing. You know, sometimes, you know, in your home, you're doing all the right practices. You're cleaning, you know, the right places. You're not ordering. You know, you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. But your neighbor, which lives very close, especially in places like Canaries, the houses are like on top of each other in Soufrière. You know, your neighbor is not doing what they're supposed to
You
do.
have a nasty neighbor.
But I'm sure you'll tell me, you know, go and speak to your neighbor. But sometimes it's not that easy where you go and speak to your neighbor and tell neighbor, your backyard is too dirty. You need to clean.
Then you have to follow the 10 Commandments. Love thy neighbor as thyself. You have to love thy neighbor as thyself. I mean, for persons who read the Bible very well.
Just
Let me tell you, a lot of times persons take the wrong approach in speaking to their neighbors. And that is how it starts. First of all, you have, it's the way you come and approach your neighbor when you see something is going wrong.
Can be harsh.
Some people, they will not come directly, but they're throwing words over the fence. And that is not good. Or you come and or you can come just as nice and the neighbor doesn't want to hear it. That happens too. Sometimes we have to go different routes. One, you can approach your neighbor if you have a good relationship with your neighbors, and you can approach it. You don't have to come out like one time to say exactly. For example, let's say we have a dengue outbreak, and you realize a lot of the drums your neighbor have is uncovered. You can just take on the topic as, because of the dengue outbreak, what is happening around and what you've seen, how many people you've seen sick and whatever. And based on that, you will bring across the drums and so on. You can do things in a smart way. Or you can be bold and say, you know, there is dengue, and a lot of people are suffering from dengue, and I too are very conscious. I have my 2-year-old child. She's already a sickle seller and so on. I would really appreciate it if you could cover the drums.
True.
I'm not saying
yeah.
that this is where the child is going to get the dengue fever, but let us take precaution to protect both of our families.
So let's be discreet as to what we're saying.
Yeah.
Let's be discreet.
Another thing is, if you have spoken to your neighbor on many occasions
Multiple
and you
occasions.
don't have a good rapport with your neighbor because of that one incident, you ask them to cover their drum, you can go to the Department of Environmental Health and lodge a complaint.
Okay.
Okay.
And
That's
then
nice.
they take it from there.
Okay, that's good. That's
Okay,
good.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Before the police gets involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do that.
That
There are
one is a
different
good.
ways-
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
good.
There are different ways you can do these things. You just have to be mindful. Do not go across on the person's property and do your indiscreetness. That is not the way.
Wie kushal ni lau pa ite sab, yes.
So, and a lot of people tend to do that because you see the person with a old fridge because there is a dengue outbreak. Hey, why have your fridge, sir? And all that time the person has soil in the fridge, and they just might have seedlings in the
Yeah,
old
that's
fridge,
true,
but
yeah.
you're already criticizing the person.
Now you know when Soufrière you go malpop sa. You know them kind of things you go ahead.
So that is what you have to be mindful of. It's not what you say, but how you say it and
True.
your approach.
Yes, yes. You're so right. You're so right. That is so true.
So you see the
That is so
same
true.
thing? That is what it is all about. So you have to be mindful of what you say to people, how you say it to people. And
Thank you for that.
since we already on that light,
Mm-hmm.
we need to speak about inside the home too. We were speaking about outside the home.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about community-wise, but we're not speaking about inside our homes.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be mindful that inside the home breeds mosquitoes also. I mean, you have rats and mice can enter our homes, and it's the way we dispose of garbage in the house. We must ensure that we have a good bin with covers. We must ensure that our dish drainers, I mean, we clean out, wash out our dish drainers, make sure there is no water collecting,
True.
and so on. And for the love of God, if you have things in the house that you do not need, do not buy extra things and then you just have a house all clustered.
Miss Wilson, I love you, brother, because persons, we, let me say we, even if I'm not I'm not part of it, but we, I do, the way we actually store our food too. They have, you see roaches,
Yes.
them German cockroaches, them things, I hate, bye.
Well, once you have a problem with German roaches, you know you have a problem.
You have
a
a
serious,
big problem, eh?
a serious problem because of the way it breeds and the hiding places,
The way we store
and
our food too.
vis-a-vis our American cockroaches.
You understand?
So the big cockroaches, it's easier to get rid of them than the German roaches. So you have to be mindful of all of that. When you go to the supermarket, don't bring boxes from these stores into the house.
True. Even the one you buy them onions, the garlic, you have
Yeah,
to be very
you
careful
have to be
because them
very
things has been
All
that.
those things.
You understand?
All of these things you have to be mindful of. And you have to make your house rodent proof. For example, underneath the door, it have to be tight. There are the devices that you can purchase
Yes, there is. There is.
when there are the
There
gaps
is.
between the door and the floor. Also around your sink. Normally when they do the plumbing, some people after a few years when they do the plumbing, when they run the pipes, it get damaged, so they burst it up, but they don't seal it back. You can do that. You have to make sure that you seal it again. If you don't want to put concrete, there are other,
Feeling things.
you can use. I think there is that
Seal.
foam thing.
Yeah, foam. Right.
and
Right. Right.
You can do that too. You have to be mindful of, oh boy, I lose my train of thought.
Okay, I'll give you something. Another thing again, especially when person do cook and you know the bouillon or whatever spill on the stove, you have
Yeah.
to, you have to
Yeah,
clean them
clean that.
things.
Clean that right
Or
away.
it fall on the side of the stove, all the that is harboring like cockroaches, all the little things coming there, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a little general cleaning, like a little deep
To,
cleaning
to
off and
me,
on.
to me, before you cook, you must clean. Like to me, that's me. You have to clean the kitchen before you go and cook. So if the stove is dirty, I don't know how your stove would be dirty before you cook.
Yeah, but that's for you. Maybe you have that in you, but a lot of people don't have that in them, and so on. And some people live a busy life. They will not have time to clean their stove. They might tell you every Thursdays I'm cleaning my stove when I'm off.
Wow.
You understand? Because some people, yes, Erland, because you're so tired when you come from work. By the time you put the food on the fire, you're falling asleep on the sofa. So it's like that for some people. And some persons are multitasking. There are single parents. You know, there are different dynamics of family life that put people in certain situations. So whereas he might have the time and he can clean his stove before he starts cooking, I might not have that. I might not have that privilege. You understand? Or you might not have that
From
privilege.
last.
Yes. So so that is why sometimes you just have to take some time and do a general cleaning. Even if you clean every day, because how many of us we clean every day? But the day we decide to do deep cleaning, we say, Mama, that house really dirty. And after we do the deep cleaning, you see a difference in the house. You see that fresh everything, because don't forget you go to work, the house is closed up, ventilation is poor, and all these kind of things. When you come back after 7, you don't open up the whole house, and it comes like that for the entire week. So you have to put it, you have to remember ventilation is important. Sunlight is a natural disinfectant too.
Okay.
Wow.
I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that. You
even
see,
know
good thing we talk. I didn't know that myself.
Why do you think before people used to put their mattresses
In the
and
sun.
open up
In
their...
the sun.
sun.
People don't
Yeah.
do that anymore.
Some people do. In the countryside, some people
By
do.
soleil.
Exactly. They open up their bedroom windows and so on, but now people just take disinfectant and just spray inside of their room.
But most of them, well, some of them think just masking it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
why you have proper ventilation, and again, it comes with the design of the house too, where you have your windows and so on. How often do you open your windows in the house? The free flow of air from one side to the other. If it's coming in from that side, it's going out from that side, or it's coming in from both sides and it's going out through the doorway. You have to be mindful of all of these things. It's all about ventilation and so on, because sometimes we breathe in that same air. We complain about we in an AC office the whole day with no windows, but when we go home, our house has been closed for the entire day and we in it for the entire night. So it's all about the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, and so on. And that is what it is. You mentioned something about food safety a while ago, and the water we drink is very, very important too. Based on where we get our water supply, what do? Do we filter our water at home? Do we boil our water? And if there are any waterborne diseases like gastroenteritis, do we take time to actually boil our water also? So it's not about what practices people does out there, like the practices that happens out there, because what do you do at home also to prevent these things? And that's what sanitation is all about. The clean drinking water and even the hand washing practices. Do you use clean water to wash your hands and with soap? Some people use a basin. They've washed their hands how many times and they're still using the same thing, or they're using the same kitchen towel all the time.
That defeats the purpose.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the same kitchen
I
towel
like-
you
I like
use to
use
wipe
that.
the counters, that's the same kitchen towel you wipe in your hands after you wash your hands. All of that causes cross-contamination. So these are all the things you have to be mindful of. And a lot of people don't see it that way because of, these are common practices at home.
Even when you go to the washroom,
You have to wash your hands. A lot of people don't wash their hands.
they say they want to
after.
have poop, so they're washing it.
How can somebody say that? You cannot say something like that because
Why?
people don't say these things anymore. How can somebody say they don't have poop so they don't wash it? That children might say something like that, but not adults.
Not.
And
Why would say nothing?
I don't know.
so yeah, a lot of people, and you'll be surprised the number of adults that use the toilet facilities and they don't wash their hands. I just want to make mention of something at the mass events that a lot of us tend to go so often and so on. When you go to a mass event, you see very few portable toilet facilities. There are, but you see very few. So imagine, for example, we have a Creole Day activity, and you're there you start as a vendor, you come in from since 3-4 o'clock, you wake up, you go there by 4 o'clock, you at the place already. Maybe in the morning you take a shower and you come and you so on.
Maybe you
And yeah. and then you start, early morning it's hot. The sales are up for Creole Day, and late afternoon the sales are up because that's when you get the mass crowd coming out. How many vendors you think by the time they come out from that portable toilet they'll have time to wash their hands?
And the big finish there, new big.
And or when they come, they'll have time to do all what they're supposed to do. So I'm just saying these things. A lot of us, sometimes you see the small itinerant vendor, but when you go to these mass events, there is a lot of things that you really don't see.
True.
And you have to be mindful of all of. I'm not saying that it is happening, but I've seen that with my own 2 eyes. But I'm not saying that it is happening with everyone. But I'm just saying, think of the different life situations. We're talking about sanitation, hygiene, or what you might want to call it right now. I think we have already tuned in sanitation into something else. But just think of all these things, the different life situations, your everyday lifestyle. And if you have to think of hygiene, sanitation, and so on, I mean, you wouldn't be doing a lot of things, because when you go out there, let's say to Creole Day, you want to
Sample.
Yeah.
the turtle. You want to sample
all the exotic.
Exactly.
Yes.
The local chicken. And what does local chicken eat? Some of them. Everything out there.
Boy. Them things.
So you have to be mindful of all of these things, Ulan. It's just not about the small itinerant vendors.
No,
but rather than when you go out there to do big, massive events, and then the person is there, or they just go back at the back of the booth, do what they have to do, and come back
on time. Miss Wilson.
And for men too,
Miss
a lot
Wilson.
of men use that same thing. They don't wash their hands after they go out there.
Well, if you shake it more than 3 times, you play in it. So,
That's not true.
but Miss Wilson, what do you think about the bakers that like by the sweat of thy Brahman shall it bread?
Well, that's not what it says. It says you have to work hard
So,
to achieve what you want in life. That's what it
But you
means.
feel have bakers that don't do that.
They don't say it by the salt
yeah,
of thy
because
brow.
that place is hot. So.
Boy, by the sweat of thy Brahman shall it bread.
No, that's not what it is. It is you have to work hard.
Yeah,
sweat
yeah.
to
I-
achieve
I-
what
We
you
know,
want.
we know what it means. We know what it
We
means.
just-
But we just
So, so these are the things you have to take into consideration. And when you think of sanitation, you think of hygiene, and you think of all these things, it's our everyday lifestyle. What we partake in, what we see other people doing, and how we can help them correct it, and so on. So maybe one of these days we'll invite environmental health.
yeah, we should
And
because
to
there's so
speak
many.
about-
Yeah, there are plenty of questions I want to ask, and I know you don't have the answers for that.
Well, I might not have the answers because it's over 3 years I've
True.
already left environmental health. I wanted to touch a little bit about monkeypox, but hopefully next week we will speak about it, because I know a lot of people
Let
are anxious and so on.
Let me ask you. I feel there's 12 places in the world where they say there's monkeypox. Can you know about that?
Well, next time, Erlan will speak about it in a little bit more detail.
Because Rome, you know why I asked that question? Every time I tend to see monkeypox, I always see black people with things.
Yeah,
So why is that?
it's
Why
always
is black people using? And if you want to check it,
Yeah.
the places they mention, there's no black community.
Yeah.
I think you have to look at the origin of monkeypox, the etiology of monkeypox, and based on that, maybe that's why they have the photos like that. I'm not saying I've not only seen black people with signs of monkeypox, but what I'm saying is it's something that is around. We need to acknowledge it.
Yep.
Not when I say around, not in St. Lucia, but we know with travel and trade.
Yeah, God forbid that happens.
I mean,
that
these
comes
are
up.
things, even if we have port officers and we have port health nurses and who are quite vigilant, but it is quite new to us. And we must understand these diseases are emerging and re-emerging diseases as time goes by.
Sure.
So we have to understand. So hopefully, next time around, we will be speaking a little bit about monkeypox. And persons take some time to read about monkeypox, especially on the CDC website, Public Health of England website, or WHO website. It's not everything on Google, but these are very good and credible websites that you can read on and educate yourself in the meantime and prepare yourself. And please, I am asking that if you see somebody with anything on their skin, do not stigmatize. And that's something we tend to do in St. Lucia quite a bit, because you see me with a few bumps on my skin, on my face. Hey, you have monkeypox? No, please. Before anything happens, we need to stop stigmatizing people, because you make people, very self-conscious, especially children. Be mindful of all these things. Having said that, I would like to say thank you to Romanus for
No problem at all.
being our guest today. It was nice having you here. It's quite a few, almost a year we haven't seen you here.
I've been here virtually.
Oh,
I'm always
virtually?
here virtually.
All right. And Erland, again, it's always a pleasure. Although you and Romanus redirected my presentation, but it was all well and good for a change. I mean, sometimes, variety is the spice of life, like they say. And I must say, again, thank you to all our listeners, those online, and especially residents of the community of Choiseul, Connery, Soufrière. Let me just say hello to Miss Sandra. She has been telling me that she's always listening to our radio program from Sandra's Boutique. Miss Sandra, good morning, and I hope that you have a blessed and safe week. And again, thank you guys. Have a wonderful week.
And guys, remember, cleanliness is next to godliness.
Thank you, Erland.
All right? Hey, that concludes the show. So till next time, God's willing, take good care of yourself and others, guys. We're out till here. All right? Casualty 911.
Casualty 911, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with the consultant. Health is not merely the absence of diseases. It is your social, economic, physical, spiritual, and mental well-being.